The void between Kepler 442b and its primary moon had become a graveyard. Twisted metal hulks drifted in silent testimony to 3 years of unrelenting warfare between the Zephyrian hegemony and the Altarian alliance. What had begun as a territorial dispute over mining rights had escalated into something far more personal, a clash of ideologies that neither side seemed willing to resolve. Commander Star of the hegemony flagship Dominion's Edge stood before the tactical display, his 4 arms crossed in contemplation. The Zephyrians were a proud warrior race, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the bridge's blue lighting. Their philosophy was simple: strength determined right, and the strongest should rule the galaxy's resources. Commander, his tactical officer clicked in the Zephyrian dialect. The Alliance fleet has assumed defensive formation around the moon's orbital station. They're using the gravitational field to mask their smaller vessels. Star's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Predictable. Admiral Valnara always favors defensive strategies. Today, we end this stalemate. He turned to address his bridge crew. All ships, prepare for synchronized plasma bombardment. Target their command vessel first. Cut off the head, and the body dies. 300,000 kilometers away, aboard the Alliance Dreadnought Harmony's voice, Admiral Valnara reviewed the same tactical data with considerably more nuance. The Altarians were humanoid in appearance, but taller and more slender, with large, dark eyes that seemed to absorb light. Their culture valued precision, patience, and the preservation of life, even enemy life when possible. Admiral, her communications officer reported, the hegemony fleet is charging weapons. Energy signatures suggest they're preparing for a full assault. Valnara's elongated fingers traced patterns on her command console, a nervous habit she developed during this protracted conflict. They always telegraph their moves. Signal all ships, implement Pattern 7. We'll use their aggression against them, channel their attack corridor into our crossfire zones. Both fleets had been preparing for what promised to be the final engagement when the universe decided to introduce a variable neither side had anticipated. Admiral, the Alliance sensor operator's voice cracked with confusion. New contact bearing 37 Mark II. It's unlike anything in our databases. Valnara leaned forward. On the tactical display, a new blip had appeared, small, irregular, and moving at a velocity that suggested basic fusion propulsion. Analysis? The ship appears to be constructed primarily of metal alloys, primitive composites. The energy signature is minimal, mostly thermal from what looks like chemical combustion systems. Admiral, this technology is at least 2 centuries behind ours. Across the battlefield, Commander Star was receiving similar reports. You're telling me this primitive vessel just wandered into our war zone? His mandibles clicked with irritation. Where did it come from? Unknown, Commander. Its trajectory suggests it originated from the outer system, but we have no records of any civilization in that region. The ship's design is completely foreign to our databases. Aboard the human exploration vessel Resilient Dawn, Captain Jake Morrison was having a very different conversation with his crew. The ship was humanity's first attempt at interstellar exploration, launched from Earth with great fanfare and carrying the hopes of 7 billion souls. Morrison, a former military officer turned explorer, had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a one-way mission. Captain Dr. Sarah Chun, his science officer, called from her station. I'm reading massive energy signatures ahead. Multiple sources, definitely artificial. Her voice carried excitement rather than concern. Jake, I think we found them. We found alien life. Morrison moved to her station, his magnetic boots clicking against the metal deck plating. The Resilient Dawn was built for function over form. Heavy armor, plating from mining asteroids, redundant systems, and weapons that were originally designed for clearing space debris. Humanity had learned to build things tough. How many ships, Sarah? I count. Jesus, Jake. There are hundreds of them. 2 distinct groups, facing each other in what looks like. She paused, recalibrating her sensors. Captain, I think we just flew into the middle of a space battle. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, their communications officer, looked up from his console with wide eyes. Sir, I'm detecting weapon signatures. Plasma-based, energy levels that could vaporize our ship in seconds. Should we retreat? Morrison studied the tactical display, his military training asserting itself. The formation patterns were unmistakable. Two fleets preparing for combat, with his ship now positioned directly between them. Negative. We came here to make first contact, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Marcus, can you establish communications? Working on it, sir. The energy patterns are wait. Captain, I'm receiving targeting locks. Both fleets are scanning us. Morrison's jaw tightened. Humanity's first contact with alien life was about to become a shooting war, and his small ship was caught in the crossfire. Commander Star was the first to act. Unknown vessel. You're interfering with a military operation. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The message, transmitted via quantum-entangled particles, reached the resilient Dawn as pure mathematical concepts that Webb's translation software struggled to interpret. Captain, I'm getting something. It's a warning? They want us to leave. Broadcast on all frequencies, Morrison ordered. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Resilient Dawn. We are explorers seeking peaceful contact. We mean no harm to either of your fleets. Both alien commanders received the message simultaneously. Star's response was immediate and predictable. Explorers? In this sector? Impossible. This is clearly an alliance deception. He turned to his weapons officer. Fire a warning shot across their bow. If they don't retreat, we destroy them. The plasma bolt that streaked toward the Resilient Dawn was intended to miss, a demonstration of power designed to encourage compliance. Instead, it struck something that neither fleet had expected: humanity's paranoid over-engineering. The ship's defensive grid, originally designed to deflect micrometeorites and space debris, absorbed the plasma burst and converted it into thermal energy that was rapidly dissipated through the hull's honeycomb heat exchangers. Warning lights flashed across Morrison's bridge, but his ship remained intact. Damage report. Morrison barked. Hull heating at 12% above normal. His engineer called back. All systems nominal. Whatever they hit us with, the armor held. Morrison's expression hardened. 3 years in the military, followed by 2 decades preparing for this mission, had taught him that strength was the only universal language. Marcus, target their lead ship. Sarah, charge the mining lasers. Captain, Chin protested. Those are industrial cutting tools, not weapons. Today they're weapons. Fire across their bow. Let them know we can bite back. The mining laser that lanced out from the Resilient Dawn was never intended for combat, but it had been designed to cut through asteroid cores with surgical precision. When it struck the empty space just ahead of the Dominion's edge, the coherent energy beam carved a perfectly straight line through the scattered debris field, vaporizing everything in its path. Both fleets fell silent. Admiral Valnara was the first to find her voice. Analysis of that energy weapon. Admiral, the beam demonstrated perfect coherence over a distance of 50,000 kilometers. The power output is substantial, and the targeting precision. Her tactical officer paused. Admiral, no one fires a warning shot with that level of accuracy unless they're supremely confident in their abilities. Commander, Star was reaching similar conclusions. That wasn't a standard energy weapon. The beam characteristics are unlike anything in our databases, and their defensive systems. He studied the readouts from his earlier attack. Our plasma bolt should have crippled that ship. Instead, it absorbed the energy and dissipated it, as if it were designed specifically to counter plasma weapons. Commander, his science officer interjected, perhaps we should reconsider our assessment of this vessel's technological level. For the first time in 3 years of warfare, both fleets powered down their weapons simultaneously. The appearance of this mysterious third party had introduced an element of uncertainty that neither commander was prepared to ignore. Aboard the Resilient Dawn, Captain Morrison watched the energy readings from both fleets drop to standby levels. They've stopped targeting us. Captain, Webb reported, I'm receiving communications from both fleets. They want to talk. Morrison nodded grimly. Humanity's first contact with alien life had begun with weapons fire, but perhaps it didn't have to end that way. Open channels to both fleets. Let's see if we can figure out what we just walked into. The three fleets hung in space, weapons powered but not aimed, as the galaxy prepared for its first three-way diplomatic encounter. None of them yet realized that this moment would mark the beginning of the end of the war that had consumed so many lives. But they were about to learn that sometimes peace comes from the most unexpected directions. The comm channels crackled with tension as three civilizations attempted their first conversation. Captain Morrison sat in his command chair, acutely aware that humanity's future might depend on the next few hours. "This is Admiral Valnara of the Altarian Alliance," came the first voice, translated into crisp, formal English by the ship's AI. "We extend greetings to the resilient Dawn. Your arrival has created an unprecedented situation." Commander Star's voice followed immediately. "Unknown vessel. I am Commander Star of the Zephyrian Hegemony. Your interference in our conflict demands explanation. State your intentions." Morrison exchanged glances with his crew before responding. "Commanders, I'm Captain Jake Morrison, representing the planet Earth and humanity. We're explorers, and we had no knowledge of your conflict. We're simply seeking to make peaceful contact with other civilizations." "Impossible." Star's voice carried clear skepticism. "No civilization could traverse interstellar distances with such primitive technology. This must be some alliance deception." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "Captain, their scans are probably showing our fusion drives and chemical thrusters. To them, we must look like we're flying a museum piece." Admiral Valnara's voice cut through the tension. "Commander Star, their ship's design is unlike anything in Alliance archives. I believe we may be dealing with a genuine third party." She paused. "Captain Morrison, your defensive capabilities suggest your technology is more sophisticated than initial scans indicated. Please explain how a ship with apparent primitive propulsion could withstand our plasma weapons." Morrison rubbed his jaw, considering his words carefully. "Admiral, our ship was built using what we call brute force engineering. We assume everything will try to kill us, so we build accordingly. Our armor isn't advanced. It's just very thick and designed to absorb multiple types of energy." "Fascinating," Valnara replied. "And your precise energy weapon?" "Mining laser, originally designed for asteroid processing. We tend to make our tools dual purpose." The silence that followed was telling. Lieutenant Webb monitored the alien communications channels and picked up fragments of side conversations. "Captain, they're talking to their own crews. I'm catching words that translate to paranoid and over-engineered." Commander Star was the first to break the silence. "Captain Morrison, you claim to be explorers, yet you carry weapons capable of precise long-range attacks and defensive systems that can absorb military-grade plasma. What manner of exploration requires such preparations?" Morrison sighed. This was the conversation he'd hoped to avoid, but perhaps honesty was humanity's best path forward. "Commanders, I need to share something about human history. We've been at war with ourselves for our entire recorded civilization. Every tool we build, every system we design, is created with the assumption that someone will try to use it to kill us." Dr. Chen pulled up historical files on her display. "Captain, should I?" "Do it, Sarah. Show them who we are." The data package that transmitted to both fleets contained humanity's complete military history. Wars, battles, strategies, and casualty figures spanning millennia. The silence that followed lasted nearly 10 minutes. Admiral Valnara's voice, when it returned, carried a note of horrified fascination. "Captain Morrison, these records, your species has been in continuous warfare for over 5,000 years. More or less," Morrison admitted. "We've had periods of peace, but they never lasted long. We fought with sticks, swords, gunpowder, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, and everything in between. We've gotten very good at killing each other, and very good at not dying when others try to kill us. Your casualty figures." Star's voice was uncharacteristically subdued. Some of your conflicts resulted in tens of millions of deaths. World War II saw estimates between 70 and 85 million casualties, Morrison confirmed. World War I, about 40 million. And those were just the largest conflicts. We've had thousands of smaller wars. Dr. Chen added, "What might surprise you is that we're actually quite good at peace too." The same species that created those wars also created the United Nations, the Geneva Conventions, and dozens of treaties limiting warfare. We've learned to negotiate because the alternative is extinction. Commander Starr's tactical officer could be heard in the background. Commander, if their records are accurate, they've conducted more warfare in the last century than our two civilizations have in the past millennium combined. Admiral Valnara's voice carried new respect. Captain Morrison, your people have survived continuous conflict for millennia and yet still chose to explore space peacefully. How is this possible? Morrison stood up, moving to the viewport where he could see both alien fleets. Because we learned that war is a tool, not a way of life. We fight when we have to, but we prefer to build, explore, and discover. Every human child learns about war, but we also teach them about the explorers, scientists, and diplomats who shaped our better moments. This explains much, Valnara mused. Your ship's design, your immediate response to threat, your precision with defensive measures. You're not warriors pretending to be explorers. You're explorers who are prepared for war. Webb looked up from his communications console. Captain, both fleets are requesting private channels with us. They want to negotiate. Morrison felt a spark of possibility. Put me through to both commanders simultaneously. Commanders, Morrison began, I've been monitoring your conflict. 3 years of warfare, hundreds of thousands of casualties, and from what I could determine, it started over mining rights. The Altarian Alliance refuses to acknowledge legitimate hegemony claims to the asteroid fields, Starr stated flatly. The hegemony's definition of legitimate involves conquering neutral systems, Valnara replied with equal firmness. Morrison nodded. Classic resource conflict with territorial expansion complications. We've fought dozens of wars like this. The good news is they're usually solvable. Solvable, both commanders asked simultaneously. Dr. Chun pulled up comparative analyses. Commanders, based on your fleet compositions and battle records, you're both following what we call limited war doctrines. You're trying to win without causing excessive damage or casualties. That's actually quite civilized by human standards. Civilized? Starr's mandibles clicked with confusion. We've been fighting for 3 years. Morrison laughed, and the sound seemed to surprise both alien commanders. Commander, 3 years is barely a border skirmish by human standards. And your casualty rates? You've both been remarkably restrained. Most human conflicts with similar stakes would have resulted in 10 times the casualties. Admiral Valnara's voice carried new understanding. You're suggesting that our conflict is moderate by your species standards? Extremely moderate, Morrison confirmed. Which tells me you're both honorable species who want to resolve this without unnecessary destruction. That's a solid foundation for peace negotiations. Peace negotiations require trust, Starr pointed out. 3 years of warfare have eliminated that possibility. Not necessarily, Dr. Chen interjected. What you need is a neutral mediator. Someone with no stake in your conflict, but enough understanding of warfare to recognize valid concerns from both sides. The implication hung in space like a challenge. Admiral Valnara was the first to voice it. Captain Morrison, would humanity be willing to mediate our conflict? Morrison looked around his bridge at his crew. Webb nodded enthusiastically. Chen gave him a thumbs up. His engineer called from across the bridge. Sir, we came here to make first contact. This is about as first as it gets. Commanders, Morrison said, humanity would be honored to help you find peace. But I need something from both of you first, a ceasefire. No shots fired while we talk. Agreed, both commanders said simultaneously, then seemed surprised by their synchronization. Excellent. Now let's discuss what each side actually needs versus what you think you want. The negotiations took 18 hours. Morrison found himself drawing on every conflict resolution seminar he'd ever attended, combined with hard-won military experience about what actually mattered in territorial disputes. The breakthrough came when he asked both sides to explain their long-term goals. The hegemony seeks security through strength, Starr explained. We need resources to maintain our defense capabilities. The alliance desires peaceful expansion and scientific advancement, Valnara added. We need access to rare minerals for our research stations. So you're not actually fighting over the same things, Morrison realized. Commander Starr, you need bulk resources for manufacturing. Admiral Valnara, you need specific rare elements for research. The asteroid fields contain both, correct? Both commanders confirmed this. Then we're not looking at a zero-sum game. We're looking at a logistics problem. Morrison pulled up the system charts. What if we establish joint mining operations? The hegemony gets the bulk resources, the alliance gets the rare elements, and both sides share the costs and security responsibilities. Dr. Chen added, we could establish neutral zones for scientific research, with shared security provided by both fleets. The final agreement was surprisingly straightforward. Joint development of the disputed systems, shared patrol duties, and the establishment of humanity as a neutral mediator for future disputes. Both fleets would maintain their territories but cooperate on mutual interests. As the treaty documents were transmitted between ships, Admiral Valnara asked the question that had been underlying the entire negotiation. Captain Morrison, why did you succeed where 3 years of warfare failed? Morrison considered the question carefully. Admiral, I think it's because we've made all the mistakes you're trying not to make. We've fought wars over resources, territory, ideology, everything. We've learned that the cost of fighting is almost always higher than the cost of sharing. Commander Starr's voice carried new respect. Your species is formidable. You've survived millennia of warfare and emerged as peacemakers. We're survivors, Morrison agreed. And we've learned that the strongest civilizations are the ones that know when not to fight. As the three fleets began their coordinated withdrawal from the battle zone, Dr. Chun turned to Morrison. Captain, I think we just established humanity's first interstellar diplomatic role. Morrison nodded, watching the alien ships move into peaceful formations. Sarah, I think we found something better than new worlds to explore. We found a way to make them safer. The resilient dawn hung between the two retreating fleets, no longer an intruder in an alien war, but a bridge between civilizations. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy not as conquerors or supplicants, but as mediators. A species too experienced with war to fear it, and too wise to prefer it. In the depths of space, peace had been forged by those who understood war best. And the galaxy would never be quite the same